My name is Tom. I'm 46. I work in cybersecurity, which means I understand how systems fail. I've spent decades tracing vulnerabilities in code, in firewalls, in people. You learn quickly that threats don't always come charging through the front door. Most of the time, they get invited in. Through trust, through comfort, through silence. That's how it started with Josh. 5 years ago, I married Holly. She was a widow when I met her. Not freshly, but not far enough out for the grief to have hardened into memory. Her husband had died in a car accident 3 years before. Left behind 2 kids. Josh, 17, and Emma, 14. It wasn't clean grief. There were questions. About speed. About distraction. About whether he had been drinking. Nobody said it out loud, but the cracks were there. In the way Josh flinched when anyone mentioned driving at night, or the way Holly stared too long at road signs. I came into the picture without expectation. I was never the man who tried to replace anyone. I didn't ask to be called dad. I didn't discipline. I didn't intrude. I just stood behind the scenes, paid for what needed paying, showed up. I thought presence would be enough. It wasn't. Josh was polite, in the same way a locked door is polite. Firm, impassive, closed. Emma was warmer, at least on the surface. She smiled, sometimes even hugged me. But it was Josh who set the tone of the house. And he made it clear, I was a guest. Temporary. Useful but not necessary. Still, I carried the load. Insurance. Groceries. Repairs. I put Emma through her first year of high school without her ever realizing her textbooks cost more than our entire grocery budget. When her laptop died 2 nights before finals, I drove 3 towns over to pick up a new one at midnight. No questions asked. When Josh's car broke down senior year, I rebuilt the transmission myself in our driveway. He never thanked me. He just took the keys and drove off. But I told myself it was fine. I wasn't doing it for thanks. I was doing it because it needed doing. That's what I always told myself. Josh didn't go to college after high school. Said he wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'm not wasting 4 years writing essays for people who never built anything, he said at the kitchen table one night. Holly smiled at him like he'd just announced he'd cured cancer. I said nothing, just nodded. Later that week, he came to me with a business plan. It wasn't terrible. Naive but not hopeless. He wanted to start a digital design company. Logos, branding kits, website templates. He had talent. I'll give him that. The aesthetic was strong. But he didn't know how money worked. Didn't understand taxes or filing statuses or quarterly estimates. He didn't even know you had to separate personal and business expenses. I walked him through it all. Filed the LLC myself. Built his bookkeeping spreadsheet. Helped him open the account at the credit union. Even got him set up with a free invoicing tool that linked to the website I designed for him from scratch. Took me a week of late nights. He barely looked at it before sending it to a client. It didn't bother me. Not then. That first year was rocky. He booked a few small clients, mostly people he knew from high school, a couple of local photographers, a boutique clothing brand that paid him in store credit. I helped him cover the gaps. Quietly. When a charge came through the joint account labeled software license or client gift, I didn't flag it. I just paid it. Then the business card started showing personal charges. Gas, groceries, even Uber Eats. I knew. Of course I knew. I track cyber breaches for a living. There's no such thing as invisible spending. I watched it happen in real time, every transaction logged in the cloud. I said nothing, because silence keeps the peace. Until it doesn't. When tax season came, I scheduled the meeting with our accountant, our usual guy, Leonard. Gray hair, wireframe glasses, speaks in percentages even at dinner. I told Holly we'd need Josh there too. His business was tied to our joint account. He'd been using our address for invoices, our resources for operations. That makes it shared exposure, shared risk. Everyone needed to be in the room. Josh showed up 20 minutes late. No apology. Just dropped into the chair with a to-go coffee and a blank expression. Holly offered him a smile like it was a reward. I handed Leonard the folder printouts of Josh's business expenses, our household income, Emma's school deductions, The joint property tax form. Leonard cleared his throat. Okay, folks. Let's start with the Schedule C filings. I watched Josh scroll through his phone as Leonard talked. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Holly. Just thumbed through Instagram like it was any other Tuesday. Then, halfway through the meeting, mid-sentence, mid-number, Josh looked up and said it. Actually, he doesn't need to be part of this. He's not family. Just like that, even Leonard froze. His pen paused in the air. His eyes darted to me, then to Holly, then back to Josh. I looked at my wife. She didn't say a word. Not a correction. Not a joke. Not a protest. Just silence. Like she hadn't heard it. Like it wasn't her son who had just drawn a line across the room. I sat there, staring at a spreadsheet filled with my money, his charges, our tax liability. And I realized something in that moment. Something I had always known but never wanted to face. I was a ghost in that room. Present but powerless. Useful but not respected. And when the time came to decide who mattered, who counted, I wasn't even on the list. I closed the folder. Calm. No drama. No raised voice. I stood up. Smoothed my jacket. If I'm not family, I said, then I'm out. Leonard blinked. Tom, I'm out, I repeated. And then I left. Not just the meeting. That afternoon I called my attorney. Explained everything. He didn't even sound surprised. You'd be shocked how often this happens, he said. You do everything right, and they still treat you like you're just passing through. By sundown, I had filed paperwork to detach myself from every shared liability. I removed my name from the joint credit line, pulled out of the business account, transferred my contributions into a private savings portfolio, sent Holly an email with a list of every step I'd taken. Not to spite her, but to document the change. It was surgical, cold, clean. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just shut the door. If I wasn't family, I wasn't funding the system anymore. Let them handle it. Let them see how stable the house feels when the man holding the beam steps away. The house was quiet when I got home. Not peaceful. Quiet. Like the moments after an explosion, where the debris hasn't settled but the air's too thick to breathe. Holly wasn't in the kitchen. Her car was in the driveway, but no light in the living room, no noise from upstairs. Just the distant hum of the fridge and the sharp tick of the hallway clock. I sat at the dining table and stared at the chair Josh always took. Slouched, phone in hand, fork scraping plate with that careless rhythm only people who've never worked for anything seem to have. I thought about the way he'd looked at Leonard, like I was the intruder, the uninvited observer. He's not family. I'd heard a lot in my career. Been called things by clients who lost millions because they ignored every warning. But that sentence, it cut cleaner than any of it. Not because it was loud, because it was calm, certain, like the conclusion to a long, quiet trial where the verdict was always going to be guilty. I waited for Holly to come down. She didn't, so I opened my laptop, logged in, and began. The joint accounts were first. I had full authorization. I'd opened them. Holly barely touched them unless something was wrong. I separated my portion and removed my name. All automatic transfers? Cancelled. Scheduled payments tied to the business? Terminated. I submitted requests to end my liability on 2 credit lines, revoked access to the shared business platform, and froze the expense card that Josh had quietly been using for months. Then I pulled up the tax folders. All my files, deductions, income reports, receipts, were isolated and recompiled into a separate record. I deleted the shared spreadsheet we'd used for years, the one Holly never updated but always relied on. Gone. Each move was surgical. No emotion. No passive-aggressive notes. Just precision. I documented every change, created backups, and emailed the legal summary to my attorney. No message. Just attachments. By the time I was done, it was almost midnight. That's when Holly came down. She didn't look surprised to see me awake. Just tired. Worn in the way people get when the story they've been telling themselves has finally collapsed. She leaned in the doorway, arms crossed like she needed a shield. "We should talk," she said. I nodded. Didn't move. She sat down slowly. "Josh didn't mean it like that." I said nothing. She sighed. He's still grieving. You know that. 5 years. Her eyes dropped. 5 years, Holly. I've been paying his car insurance, his software licenses, his damn Spotify. 5 years of doing everything and asking for nothing. He's a kid. No. He's a man. A man who owns a business, lives under my roof, uses my name on every form that gives him credibility, until it's inconvenient. Then suddenly, I'm just a stranger. She swallowed. He didn't mean. Then why didn't you say anything? That landed. She looked away. I waited. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't want to make it worse. That was the moment, I said. That's when I needed you to say one sentence. Just one. I know. She didn't cry. Holly doesn't cry. She retreats. Folds into herself like paper. But I watched it all happen in her silence. The regret, the defense, the calculation. It was too late for all of it. I've removed myself from everything, I said. Joint accounts, business, tax filings. Her head snapped up. Tom, I'm not retaliating. I'm just correcting the assumption. Please, she said. Let's slow down. No, I said. You already did. We sat in silence for a while. Then she stood, walked back upstairs. No door slam, no final word. Just the soft creak of steps and the cold distance of a marriage that had stopped being a partnership and become a transaction. 2 weeks passed. Josh didn't speak to me. Not once. I saw him in the kitchen sometimes, passing through like a tenant. He didn't ask why his card stopped working. Didn't mention the frozen accounts. He just adjusted. Quietly. Like someone who's never had to fix anything himself and doesn't know how to ask for help. Holly kept things civil. She cooked. She made small talk. But she never brought up the meeting again. And I didn't invite the subject back in. Then the letter came. IRS envelope. Thick. Brown. Unmistakable. Holly opened it at the kitchen counter. Her face drained of color as she read. Tom, she called out, voice trembling. Can you come here? I didn't move. She brought it to me, held it out like a hostage note. They're auditing the business. I looked down at the page. A standard trigger, mismatched income reporting, inconsistencies in deductions, failure to distinguish personal and business expenses. I knew the pattern. I'd warned him about it 6 months ago. Her eyes searched mine. This is serious. I know. Why didn't you say anything? I did. When? 2 weeks ago. When I walked out of that room. She shook her head, breath hitching. Tom, please. We need to fix this. You were involved in the business. I'm not anymore. You helped him start it. And then I was told I wasn't family. Silence. Long hollow. Can you call someone? She asked. Your attorney? The accountant? I don't have standing. Please. I don't have access. Her voice cracked. You're really going to let this happen? I'm not letting anything happen. I left the system. This is the result. She sat down slowly. The paper trembled in her hands. I watched her realize what I'd known since that meeting. I was never part of their family. Just part of their infrastructure. The unspoken backbone of a house built on borrowed labor. Let them call Leonard now. Let them explain the mess. Let Josh find out what it means to run a business when the man covering your mistakes has disappeared. Because this wasn't a punishment. It was an exit. And I don't belong where I'm not wanted. Audits are like bloodhounds. Once they pick up the scent, they don't stop. You can't outtalk them. You can't outweight them. You can only show your receipts and hope they match your claims. Josh had none. The first letter was just the signal. The second came fast, a request for full transaction records tied to the business account. 3 years of activity. Bank statements. Itemized deductions. A breakdown of every expense marked client-related. I knew what they'd find before they found it. Trips that had no itineraries. Dinners labeled consulting meetings with no attendees listed. Subscriptions to services that had nothing to do with graphic design. One charge was for a gaming chair, another for hair products. There was even a $600 expense logged as branding research. I remember the day he bought that drone. Said he'd use it for video content. He used it once, then left it in the garage. When I still had access, I used to adjust these things. Quietly. Shift the labels. Remove questionable charges. Add footnotes, attach PDFs. It wasn't about protecting him. It was about protecting us. Because the moment our names were linked, so were the liabilities. But I wasn't linked anymore. Not legally. Not financially. Not even emotionally. It was their system now. The third letter confirmed the investigation. No longer a routine inquiry. It was an active review of potential misfiling. Penalties pending. Interest accruing. A fine-toothed comb over every dollar. Holly sat across from me in the kitchen, the letter shaking in her hand. She looked thinner than usual. I sunken. A hollow edge to her voice I hadn't heard before. They're asking for receipts. I sipped my coffee. We don't have some of them, she said. Then they'll assume the worst. She blinked. But they'll charge him. Probably. They might freeze the account. They will. She went quiet. I could see the war behind her eyes, the impulse to beg, to negotiate, to pull me back in like an emergency tool pulled from a dusty drawer. I can't fix this, I said preemptively. It's not mine anymore. Tom. He didn't want me involved. You let that stand. Her voice broke. I didn't know it would get this far. You didn't want to know. She left the table without finishing her tea. That was the new rhythm. Short conversations, sudden exits. A quiet house slowly fracturing around an unspoken truth. I had been the one holding it up, and I had stepped away. 3 days later, the account was frozen. Josh found out when his debit card failed at a gas station. He came home storming. Keys slammed on the counter, voice tight with disbelief. They locked the F******NG account. I didn't respond. Mom said you'd know what to do. I looked up from the paper. No, she didn't. His face flushed. They think I committed fraud or something. Can you call the bank? I'm not on the account. You were. I'm not now. But you set it up. And I dismantled my part. He stared at me, breathing hard. You let this happen, he said. I held his gaze. No. You pushed me out. Then you mismanaged what I built. He didn't respond, just stormed back upstairs. I heard drawers open, cabinets slam, the scramble of someone realizing they never learned how to run the machine they were given. That night, Holly knocked on my door. He's scared. He should be. You don't have to be cruel. I'm not. Cruel would have been letting him keep walking into this with no idea what was coming. I stepped away because I did know. She stood there for a long time. I didn't stop him. I know. And I didn't stop you. No, I said. You didn't. The next week brought the penalties. Late fees. Interest. A warning about formal charges if adjustments weren't made within 30 days. They asked for a meeting. IRS rep, business owner, and accountant. Holly called me. I was at work. They need someone to represent him. I can't. You understand all this. I'm not legally attached. Please. I paused. Is he going? Only if you come. Then he's not ready. Silence. This is your son, she said finally. No, I said. This is your son's business. And his decisions. She hung up. That Friday, Emma called me. First time in months. Mom's a wreck, she said. I know. Josh blames you. I know that too. But I don't, she said quietly. That stayed with me longer than I expected. Still, I didn't go to the meeting. Leonard did. Without me. Josh sat there sweating through his shirt while the rep laid out the discrepancies. I got the summary afterward. Holly forwarded it, no message, just the PDF. Total owed. Just under $14,000. They didn't have it. Not in any liquid form. The business account was frozen. Josh's personal savings were thin. I had seen the numbers. He never believed he'd have to use his own money to pay back what he took. They called in a favor. From me. Not directly. Through Emma. Through Holly's sister. Even through Leonard. All the same answer. No. Josh came home late one night. I was on the back porch, reading. He didn't sit. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes avoiding mine. "You think I deserve this?" he asked. "It's not about deserve." "Then what?" "It's about responsibility." He looked away. "I messed up." "Yes." He stood in silence, then turned, walked inside. No apology. Not really. Just the shape of regret. The edges of consequence starting to press against him. Let them press. Because when you build your house on someone else's shoulders, don't be surprised when it falls the moment they step away. A month passed. By then, the silence had its own weight. Not emptiness, more like pressure. The kind of silence that builds when people still live under the same roof, but the ties between them have frayed past repair. No family dinners. No shared errands. Just three people moving through the same hallways, orbiting each other like ghosts. Emma stayed away. She visited on weekends, then not at all. She never said why. Maybe she saw what was happening and didn't want to be a part of it. Maybe she knew she couldn't fix it. I didn't ask, and she didn't volunteer. Holly stopped asking me to intervene. After that night on the porch, after Josh's half-confession, half-deflection, she pulled back. Something had shifted in her. Not rage, not even disappointment, just resignation. The look of someone who finally understood the price of her silence. And Josh? He started to vanish in pieces. First it was his arrogance. Then his confidence. Then the mask he wore in public, the one that said "I've got this," even when nothing was held together. I saw it crumble in small ways. The tension in his jaw. The panic in his eyes when a new letter arrived. The way he stopped answering his phone when unknown numbers showed up. One evening, I found him sitting in the garage. Same garage where I'd fixed his car. Where we'd built his desk. Where he'd filmed that one drone video and called it content marketing. Now it was just a box full of tools he didn't know how to use. He didn't look up when I opened the door. They say if I don't pay by the end of the month, they'll escalate it. I leaned against the frame. They will. Like, collections? Worse. Civil penalty. Liens. Maybe even court if they decide it's intentional fraud. He rubbed his eyes. I didn't know what I was doing. I know. I thought it would just work out. Like it always does. I waited. Because it always did, he added. You always fixed it. That was the moment. Not his panic. Not the fear. But the recognition. He looked up at me, for the first time in weeks, and there was no contempt there. Just confusion. Like he was realizing how much of his world had been held together by a man he never tried to understand. I never thought you'd leave, he said. I nodded. I thought you'd be mad, but not gone. I didn't answer. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I don't even know how much I owe anymore. I pulled a folded sheet from my back pocket. Printed it that morning. I handed it to him, a simple spreadsheet. Breakdown of every expense, fee, and penalty from the moment I left the account to now. He looked at the bottom line. His eyes widened. How did you get this? You forgot to change the email on the tax platform. His face turned red. I stepped back from the doorway. Figure it out, I said, and I left him there. Not to punish him. Not to shame him. Just because there was nothing else to do. 2 weeks later, I got a knock on my door. Not the front door. The side one, the one near the basement where no one ever came. Josh stood there. Plain t-shirt. Jeans. No phone in his hand. No performative sigh. Just him. I'm shutting it down, he said. The business. He nodded. Can't sustain it. I'm in over my head. Maybe I'll get a job. Save. Try again later. But I can't keep pretending it's working. I didn't speak. I told Leonard, he added. He said it was the right call. Said I should have done it 6 months ago. He looked at me. He also said you told him this would happen. Last year. I did. Josh laughed. But there was no humor in it. And I still acted like I knew better. I said nothing. He took a breath. I'm sorry. For a moment I almost believed he meant it. But then he said, I just wish you'd warned me. And there it was again, the instinct to shift weight. to reach for someone to absorb the failure. I met his eyes. I warned you when I left the table. He nodded, slowly, like he'd heard it before, but hadn't understood it until now. Then he left, didn't ask for help, didn't try to bargain, just walked off, hands in pockets, as if carrying the weight himself for the first time in his life. They have a new accountant now, someone Holly found through a friend. Younger, cheaper, probably kinder. I haven't asked how that's going. I don't want to know. The joint accounts remain untouched. My name is nowhere on them. The passwords have all been changed, the documents wiped from the shared drive. There's a wall now, clean one, nothing to blur the boundaries again. The only thing I left behind was a note, tucked into the folder I used to keep all the receipts in. I know Josh found it. Holly must have given it to him. It said, "Systems break when you don't understand how they're being held together. You assumed I was replaceable. You were wrong. That's not revenge. That's gravity. I don't ask questions anymore. I don't fix what isn't mine. I don't hover. I come home. I make dinner for one. I keep my receipts separate. I live inside my boundary. The strange, the silence. Not empty, not cold, just quiet in a way that feels earned. Like a house finally at rest. They still live here for now. I hear the movement, the late-night footsteps, the muttered arguments, the tension that has nowhere to go. Holly doesn't bring it up. Neither do I. We share space, not much more. The kind of distance that happens when someone stands by while you're erased, and then wants to talk about the weather. I see her sometimes, looking at me across the room, like she's remembering things differently now, like she's calculating the years backward, trying to spot the moment it all turned, wondering if it was the silence, or the moment she said nothing when it mattered most. But I don't ask, because if you have to ask someone to stand up for you, you've already lost. Josh hasn't come to me again. Not since the apology that wasn't. I think he's ashamed. Or maybe he's still hoping time will do what responsibility couldn't. That it will soften me. That I'll forget the spreadsheet, the chair, the look on his face when he said I wasn't family. But I haven't forgotten. That sentence lives in me now. Not as pain, just as architecture. Like a beam that cracked and taught me to rebuild the whole house without it. And now I live differently. Not smaller, just cleaner. I know what I am now. Not a father. Not a partner. Not a source. Just a man who showed up, gave everything, and learned exactly what that was worth. So now I ask you, the ones who listen, was I wrong to walk away from a table where I was never given a seat? Or was I finally right to stop feeding a system that only valued me in silence? You tell me, would you have stayed?